Progress.
Got everyone?
Perfect.
Recording?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll start with a roll call. McKee here, Schultz is excused. Bottoма?
Present, but who gets to excuse Schultz?
Well, he's not. He's not.
He was not
Oh.
able to attend.
Okay.
Varenkamp.
Here.
Nichols.
Here.
Perfect. All right, we'll go into the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd stand and join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, 1 second here. Agenda approval. I know we have a couple additional documents. Anything else from staff?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. There's a couple changes to the agenda tonight. We're not able to have Watershed Commissioner Gensner come in today to do his presentation, so we're looking at either doing that on July 28th or one of the August meetings. We had a couple additional items, as mentioned in the packet, related to broadband, outlining a draft resolution of support, as well as some additional documentation from the providers themselves that we received. And then we also have an additional closed session that was added. We did notice the person related to the closed session and made them aware of that addition. So beyond that, those are changes for today.
Perfect. Anything from council? Then I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as modified by Jessica's
So moved.
additions.
Second.
Tracking. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Commission representatives, Jim Shulock and Michelle Friedrich. I don't know if Jim's online. Perfect. And then we'll go into open forum.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Anyone wanting to speak on open forum can approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. Anyone joining us virtually can press *9 to raise your hand if you're joining us via phone. Otherwise, press reactions and raise your hand, and we join you if you're joining us via tablet, smartphone, or computer. Mayor, at this time, no one is raising their hand.
Okay. Then we'll give it a second and go into presentations.
We
have one.
actually only have a staff member and a commission liaison as our only
Okay.
folks joining us online at
Audience.
the moment, so.
Okay, that works.
It's a busy
Well-
summer.
Yes, maybe we'll have more people join, but at this point, we're
Sounds
somewhat
good.
limited.
We'll go into the one presentation we still have for outgoing Planning Commissioner Jacobs.
Perfect, thank you. Commissioner Jacobs, we do have a resolution for you that's outlined in the consent agenda, and if we can read that and pull that from consent if you'd like. Otherwise, we do have a recognition award for your years of service for this city. So we can walk through the.
Yeah, I'll read it here, and then we can, if someone that still wants to pull it, we can do that, but go over it. So, whereas the city of Corcoran reluctantly accepted a resignation notice from Dean Jacobs from the Planning Commission in a resignation letter dated May 30th, 2022, and whereas Dean Jacobs has showed longstanding dedication to the Corcoran community by serving on the Planning Commission since 2009, and whereas during that time, Dean Jacobs provided thoughtful and thorough reviews of dozens of land use applications, assisted in establishing and updating design guidelines for the city, contributed in 2 updates to the comprehensive plan, and served as the Planning Commission Chair from 2013 to 2022. And whereas the City of Corcoran recognizes the time, energy, dedication, and leadership provided by Dean Jacobs during his 13 years of involvement on the Planning Commission. Now therefore be it resolved by the City of Corcoran that the City Council hereby honors Dean Jacobs for his distinguished service to the City of Corcoran and the residents of the city. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys really need more light.
Yeah.
We haven't fixed that one bulb yet.
Can we add
Not
to
in the budget.
your proclamation, the mayoral proclamation? Okay.
Yep, you're getting 2 tonight.
Thank you. There you go.
That'll go on my mantle of my house.
Yes.
Well, we
Thank-
appreciate
Guys, it's always wonderful working with you. Always wonderful working with you.
Good job, big guy.
You've done an exemplary job, Dean.
Yeah.
I reluctantly had to resign, but you obviously no reason why. And, you know, I kept saying for years that I was going to, this would be my last year, but, you know, every single year,
Oh, they did get fixed.
it just got more intense and it just got more important and it just captured me and I just couldn't let go, so. For those who've been waiting for this day for a long time, it has arrived.
I don't know of too many people
I don't
that.
think so.
You'll be missed.
Yes,
Yeah,
you will.
I,
Definitely come visit us.
my heart
too
sank
far.
when I read your emails. Your heart and soul was into that position, and we all felt it. All the
He's
time.
still a landowner in town.
Yeah, I get that. Will you still own your house, or are you getting rid of your land?
I
your
just
daughter.
sold the land behind it.
Oh, okay.
I sold my house to my daughter, so.
Is she going to apply?
Yeah, there you
I
go.
tried to, you know, I've talked to her about it, and I think she would like to. I think she just needs to get kind of,
Settled.
you know, broken in, even though she grew up here. You know, she served as a student commissioner on the Parks and Trails.
Oh.
Back when they.
That qualifies.
I think it was a pilot program, you know, to have some students, you know.
Still experience.
So she served at that time. and
Have a hell of a
she
coach,
worked at
too.
Ice Rink and stuff, so she's been involved in the younger years, and I wouldn't doubt that she might, you know, try to become involved in that regard.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Talk to Jessica Christensen Buck about Dean Jacobs Park when you donate that land to us.
Yeah, as long as it has a snowmobile trail. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Congrats, Dean. Enjoy, yes.
I'm assuming lots of golfing in your future here? Even more golfing than normal?
Yeah, I just got done golfing.
There you go.
But, yeah, I'm looking forward to some of the best golf courses out there.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed playing up there. And,
Awesome.
I think I'll try to get on as, on the landscape crew or the grounds crew, the golf course, so I can get cheaper golf at some of the
There you go.
golf courses.
Up before the sunrise, golf before the sunset. Life would be good.
Get to drive the Gator.
It's a good deal.
I want the big mower.
He's the morn,
I want
dude.
the big carrier.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then we'll move on to consent agenda, which consists of items 7A through 7H, including what I just read. Does anyone want to pull anything?
Is Genther not going to present?
He is
Yeah,
not
he's
able
out
to
of town.
present today. He ended
Oh,
up
okay.
being out of town.
Did you already say that?
Yes.
Okay.
No worries. I said a lot of things at the beginning. with
Yeah.
Lots of changes.
As I said it, I'm like, she already mentioned that. Okay.
I just want to comment on 7G if I could. So if we could pull that for a
Pull
second.
that. Anything else? All right, then I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items 7A through F and 7H,
Second.
or I'll make the motion. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Me too. I'm thinking
And
too
then
hard.
7G, you wanted to pull, Dean. Go right ahead.
7G, if I can direct a question to Kevin, I'm still concerned about that low wetland area that has been created with everything that's happened west of Walnut Lane. Is that filled in when everything is said and done?
Oh, yeah.
I know a lot of activity the next 2 months here and stuff, and I'd commend the Hennepin County and everybody working on that, and thank the current neighbors in that development for their patience and stuff, but I want to make sure that hole is filled in and guttered or whatever.
Yes, you're correct. That will get addressed with both the second edition Rush Creek Reserve that is in action right now, as well as the turn lanes.
Okay,
That will not be a hole there when it's all said and done. I think they're actually paving the turn lanes sometime early next week, and then they will start cleaning up the boulevard, so.
got it. And with that, make a motion for 7G.
7G. Okay, do we have a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Moving right along, we'll go on to 8, which is planning business. We have a public comment opportunity if you have anyone.
Yes, we have another person joining us, so anyone wanting to make comments, you can come to the podium, state your name and address. Otherwise, if you're joining us virtually, press *9 if you're on a phone. Otherwise, if you're joining us on a electronic device, press reactions and raise your hand. Mayor, at this time, no one's raising their hand.
Okay, then we'll go right into 8A, which is the concept plan, Lee Open Space Preservation Sketch Plan.
Perfect. Thank you. Mayor and Council, Natalie is joining us virtually today, and we'll be able to go over this, and we do have the applicants here in the audience if you'd like to ask them any questions.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So the Lee OSP plan is our only planning business. Sorry.
We're getting a lot of feedback. Hold on one second.
Okay.
I feel like we're really loud and that's very quiet.
Natalie, can you try speaking again?
Testing, testing. Is it working? Hello?
Natalie? Natalie, can you hear us?
Test. Go ahead. Sorry. Testing. Hello?
Oh, they can hear Natalie online, but
We could definitely hear her. We're still turned up very loud. It doesn't say we are there.
no. Natalie, we're having a hard time hearing you in the off, or in the chambers. Yeah, do you want to call my cell phone and we can put you on?
Hello, can you?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so I'm gonna just make sure my
I can hear it directly from there. I don't know.
off 1 second. Okay, so if we go back to the slides aren't currently showing on Zoom, just so you know.
I'm not able to see can you see?
No, I just see City of Corcoran at the moment.
That's odd, because that's not what I have.
Oh, no, maybe. Okay, well, we can just go. So if you go to the first slide, which shows a picture of the site, basically the request in front of us.
Natalie, are you here?
Couple technical problems. today.
Yeah. Natalie, can you hear us? Sorry about this, everyone.
Call interrupt.
Yep, call failed. I'll call right there. Okay, go ahead, Natalie. Sorry about that. I'll work on that.
No, it's totally fine. So a picture of the OSMP sketch is should be on the slide that you're looking at now. The plan includes 12 residential lots and 45 acres of preserved farmland. 2 of the existing home sites would front Oakdale Drive and planned as lot block 5 and lot 1 of block 4. And then there will be 10 new lots accessible with the extension of Heather Lane to the southwest of the site. with 2 outlots that will be used as a tree farm and some tillable crops mixed in, which will vary from year to year. And the next slide will show a picture. Yep, perfect. So the part of the discussion tonight will focus on the existing structure, one of block 4. Lot 1 will become a 4-acre parcel and will serve as the residence and operational base for the applicant, who will also retain ownership of Outlot A and B for his farm. They do want to keep all of the existing structures as they currently exist today, which includes 2 residents and about 9 or 10 accessory structures. Staff does have some concerns with this based on previous experience and the fact that we are carrying a 4-acre lot. 2 residents, we really don't have an approval process to allow that second residence on a single lot. So the second house onto its own parcel in that second house.
Natalie, we lost you for a second here. Our cell coverage is not great in this
Yeah.
building. Okay.
Oh,
Oh, there we go.
Did you get, sorry, where did I cut out?
second house.
The second house. You're talking about the.
Oh, the second house. Oh, no, okay. So the second, okay, so the second house.
Natalie, we're having a hard time hearing you still. Natalie?
You might have better luck with FaceTime, because I don't think it uses the cell network. Or go over Wi-Fi.
I'll try.
Worth a shot.
Did not do video.
Wonder if it's maybe her service.
Yeah, we only have one bar here. Part of it.
You ever seen this property?
Hello.
Hi. Sorry about that, we lost you.
No.
Cut out.
I'm gonna leave this mistake.
Oh, Natalie, can we try having you call in?
I was gonna drive by
the
today, I didn't.
No, that's okay.
So, I'm struggling hearing. I just do my best here to kind of last couple steps. So the existing structures on Lot 1, Block 4. The gist is for one of the residences needs to be removed if they don't want to sacrifice one of their development rights.
Okay.
It,
Natalie,
on the prop.
you've dropped out for another minute there, or another couple seconds there. So we would recommend that one of the houses, if they kept 2 houses, it would remove one of the development rights? Is my understanding.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
That's what's in.
it makes sense.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions on that aspect of the stuff that was in the
Nearly.
staff report?
Or somewhat.
Yeah, I have one, but it's more of a follow-up question.
Is
To
it-
Natalie or?
No,
Applicant?
Yeah.
to us.
Okay, gotcha. And she dropped?
Yeah, and she
Okay.
dropped out even off the Zoom call.
Gotcha.
Having some technical
Yep,
difficulties.
it happens.
But, if you'd like, I can try to talk through at least maybe a couple of the other things.
Sure, yeah, if we could
that,
hit the big
she
points.
that she talks about in the staff report, and hopefully we'll be able to connect with her here. So some additional topics that we'd discuss if we would look at doing a PUD for this would be setbacks from Oakdale with limitations on wetlands, shorelands, and floodplain. One or more community well sites. We'd be looking at some additional buffering requirements on the Oakdale lots potentially, and then all lots required to front internal streets. Some other possible benefits, so those would be the flexibility pieces that would be needed to make this work as it's outlined. The possible benefits would be impacts to Heather Lane, and potentially any other benefits you would like to outline.
Gotcha.
Next topic here is preservation and restoration and management plan. We do require an HOA for things such as this. They have options on that open space, and a few different ways to get there. We would look for open space and pedestrian connections through that open space. We'd want to landscape those common areas, and then we'd want to make sure to have wetland buffers and monument signs on, like we would any development. We want to find an architectural theme through that, and then we'd want to landscape the right-of-way with native vegetation. Follow along the OSMP here. Some other topics to address would, one other item that we want to address with Lot 1, Block 4 is either plat the second residence on its own or ask that it be removed and grant a conditional use permit with less accessory structure than the current footprint, because it's quite large. So those would be the key topics that we wanted to address this evening. I do have Natalie back on the phone. I'm not sure if she's able to hear us at all.
Okay.
But Natalie, anything else that you'd like to add in my very terrible version of playing you?
No, you did great. You've been paying attention to me for weeks, apparently. No, that was great. So let me know what questions you have, and I will do my best to hopefully not lose connection.
Perfect. Any questions for Jessica / Natalie?
One, if you can just step back just a couple of slides. That one right there, one or more community well. Why would they not have individual wells for each home?
I think it was, the staff report mentioned that intent probably was, but that if it couldn't be done there wasn't enough space for it.
Yeah.
That's what they'd have to do, and have to be through a PUD.
Yeah, so it's just noting that if we couldn't make the septic sites work, we'd have to use the community well. Is that correct, Natalie?
Correct. So the regulation reads for this type of plat, if we have to use some kind of community or shared septic or well system, then we do have to do a PUD. It's required per that section of code. They just didn't really address wells in their narrative or their concept plan, so it's more just kind of a placeholder that as this gets resolved, this may be something that triggers a PUD later on.
Gotcha.
Would there be any cost savings from a community well versus 10 individual wells?
That's a good question.
I think Kendra always alludes to some examples. I think in Elk River where a dozen years ago, it was it was kind of the hot idea to do these. There's a lot of long-term maintenance issues with community septics. And
For
they
the
really
septic,
aren't-
yes, but just on the well side, like, would you
Um,
potentially see an advantage to do a community well and have individual septics?
I don't, we'd have to probably follow up with that. I'm not
Yeah.
familiar with that. I'm not
Maybe, but
familiar
I-
with that combination of
Yeah.
one, they're usually one or the other, or in combination. I don't know of a
Do we-
appropriate approach. I can research that and follow.
We don't have a community well anywhere, but we've got a community septic, right?
We have one.
There's one community septic in town.
Well, are you thinking of Maple Hill? Or
No,
No.
Maple Hill Estates has its own private well that I would say serves as a community well.
I understand that, but isn't there a community septic up off of Kane Road, north of 30? Or did that never happen?
I don't believe that.
Might
ever
not,
happened.
I thought there was too.
Natalie, do
So
you
that-
have any
I
community
came up not too
septic?
long ago.
Yeah, that oftentimes they fail and then the city has to take responsibility for
Right.
the septic part, but I'm not sure about the well part.
Right.
So you're saying off of Kane Road, there's a community well?
I don't remember if it was
Thought it was-
specifically.
Oh, I
after
thought it
Canaan,
was
I
the
just remember-
Community
septic.
septic.
Just north of Kane.
Yeah, sorry.
North of 30, east side, there's 3 homes there. 3 or 4.
Sounds right, yeah.
Okay. I will do some research and send out an email to you guys. when I
Sounds good.
find.
Perfect.
And then if individual wells don't fit, you said, that's telling me we've got not big enough lots. And when I look at this, everything to the north and west of this, the lots are bigger than this. And I'm concerned with the neighbors to the north, while they know, or I hope they knew that access was there and it's not gonna be a cul-de-sac the whole while. I know what they're trying to do. I love the idea of the open space and those kind of things, and I understand our ordinances and stuff, but to all of a sudden get into the complicated side of a community well and doing those kind of things, who pays the electricity, who pays all of that stuff, I know it's not for us to decide, but I'm worried that all of a sudden something fails, it turns out to be our fault.
Well, unlike a community sewer, when a community sewer fails, it screws up around them, like the sewer is failing.
Yeah.
If a well fails, they just don't get water. It doesn't actually impact anybody but the people who are tapped into that well. So like that well doesn't concern me as much. A community sewer does, because if it fails, then, and they don't have any money to fix it, then it becomes the public problem.
Right.
And one other note, MDH handles wells and Hennepin County Environmental handles septic. So although there's a role we play in making sure they work, we don't necessarily manage either of those as the city of Corcoran in the rural areas.
Is the only different, or do you have other stuff?
No, that was it, and then again, I wouldn't mind keeping the buildings, but take away one building right to make that happen. I'm for that kind of idea.
Is the only, if they said that we'll use 2 building rights on the old farm and the new farm, and we're gonna tear down all the buildings, would that be a consent agenda? It's something that just automatically gets approved by the city within the code?
If it was just the two lots and not proposing any of the other lots?
No, are they within code on everything except the
So-
accessory building and the?
So this is an OSMP plat, and it's a concept plan, so we don't have all the information to tell you that everything in this concept plan is. I think Natalie is trying to highlight the items that we need some clarification on, like wells, whether or not they're able to fit those on there. Right now, it's currently a plat. As she mentioned, if There may be some areas where we need flexibility that would require a PUD.
Okay.
If we didn't have any of the concerns listed up here on the flexibility area, if they could meet everything as a plat today, if they can meet it under standards, it would just be a plat then. So
Yeah.
We wouldn't,
So we don't have enough, we haven't actually seen an app.
This is the concept
So
piece.
the big ideas are whether or not we allow them to use one building right for two buildings, or homesteads, or homes.
Yes.
And I guess, I'll just say, to be historically consistent, the building rights are set, and I would say, for sure, you can't use one building right for two homes. That's where I would be on that. And then, on the other piece of the farm building thing, I guess, I think you get, are you the applicant? Oh, okay. I've been thinking about I've been thinking about the additional farm building question.
Besides the house, like the other accessory buildings on that lot?
Yeah, like, is it okay to have more accessory buildings than the code allows?
Right.
Once they split it?
Do we know what the square footage is total?
Currently,
And what the lot size would allow?
I think we were bringing it, so staff estimates there's at least 1,500 square feet. 15,000 square feet currently. So this would cut it in half. We would need a public hearing for a plat, so we couldn't necessarily consent agenda it, but we would bring it when it was finalized, we certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, to that question, I think about whether or not the opposite were true and somebody wanted to put additional buildings on their existing lot within a neighborhood. And it's kind of like taking a farm and turning it into a neighborhood. And I'm struggling with, well, if you're gonna do that, then you have to like say, okay, this is gonna be a neighborhood, so we can't have all these accessory buildings. Cause,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
so those are my initial thoughts, yes.
I do have 4 acres equals 2,125 square feet of allowable.
So it'd be
So
pretty
generally,
substantial.
they would be allowed.
Yeah.
To 2,000, and we're recommending a CUP with up to 8,000, I believe.
And that's with the removal of that.
And that's with the removal of some, yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So that,
Dean, what were you saying about your thoughts on the second house, of using a building right, but keeping?
Well, I thought you guys had said that to keep both,
So
to do both homes, it would split to a building right.
we would like it to split.
So there'd be
To use
2 up there and
the-
there'd still be, I'm trying
And
to
then we would have to take one.
One of the lots
take one away, is what you
away
said. That's where I
if
was
we-
going.
If we were
Yep.
to do that.
If your other
Um,
concern was the lot size, that could potentially.
The lot sizes, I mean, while I understand Gulf's plats drive me nuts because, and again, that's what everybody expects, but it's going to be such a long time before we use that Gulf's plat out here. Everything down in that corner seems tight to me. And it doesn't match the rest of the neighborhood north and west of this.
But that's the whole point of building rights, is to be able to have
Right.
homes in one area.
So the.
If I go back to the Paulson property, it was 90 acres. They took 90 acres preserved like this, a half of it, 45 acres, which gave them 18 building rights. But I think on that 90 acres, it turned into 16 building rights on it, Paulson, with the power line easement and all those complications on that parcel.
So there's a minimum or a maximum lot size of 4 acres and an OSMP.
Okay,
So we can't necessarily go larger than the 4 acres, and all the lots meet the current minimum lot
okay,
size of 2.
then I can't say anything about it.
Oh,
Oh,
they're all
I think
over
it's
4 acres?
part of the
They're all a
No.
little under 4 acres.
A little under.
Max,
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, that's what I meant.
but some are
But as
right
long
on
as,
4 acres.
and I read all of this, I'm thinking out loud, and it just doesn't look like the rest of them, but when I look at the rest of the properties, and I drove it, a number of those properties, some of them got big chunks of property, but
Yeah.
it's a ton of wetland, and it's lowland, and it's all of those things, so. And then my last concern on the whole thing was that road is stubbed and it's nowhere, so now we've got even a longer cul-de-sac. And I'm sure Public Works will weigh in on that turnaround in there and everything else,
Yeah,
but
we'd have to have a turnaround and
Yep.
it hasn't gone through public safety review yet, but.
it's
they would have to
concept.
come and-
So if everything is right, I'm not crazy about a communal well.
And in speaking with public safety, it sounds like they would want a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
But generally, they've reviewed it. Like,
The buildings, I mean, I was sitting here asking John, what's the building on the picture?
Which neighborhood are you talking about that you said that it won't fit into the,
It's the one on the west, Heather Lane.
It goes
It's
in
a lot
here.
bigger than the
There's
Hague
parcels
Drive
in there.
homes are, those sites.
yeah, so,
They're bigger lots.
so this is
and stuff.
a 3 acre lot here.
You're doing even more fancy than me. Cool.
So and then this one here is a 8 acre lot.
That one's monster because of the lowland and everything
Yeah.
else, so.
And then this one's a 3 acre lot.
So the perception in my eyes, it just seems like a lot
This is
there,
3,
but he got it.
this is also, looks to be about
It's
3.
generally the same.
3.3.
Similar.
History, what is that building right there? If I can ask the applicant. Looks like a couple of silos split between as an old corn crib.
The bottom left there?
Yep.
Yeah, we have that full of tree stuff that's old storage.
Okay. What was it?
Grain bin?
Okay. Never seen one before. And I wasn't gonna drive back there and walk around and look at it, but thank you for answering that question. So if John helped, he's got I wanna see what that is, cause that's faster than what I would look up. If we're ranging from 8 down to 3+ acres on the properties north, I don't have concerns with the size of
Gotcha.
pieces.
Sounds good. So
Thank you for that,
big
John.
picture, a couple things that were mentioned in the staff report. If either some of these things like the well issue or, well, there's that and some of the wetland, shoreline, and floodplain issues
Yeah.
that would have to go PUD if they were able to do anything. And then there's a couple other issues that laid out that could be done through a PUD or variance. Are we okay, generally speaking, going down the PUD route, if necessary?
I would be okay with that.
Okay.
In terms of advantages for the PUD, I had a couple of notions. These are just initial thoughts. But when we're looking for things that the city would value, one idea could be, we have an on-road trail currently in that area on the long-range plan. If there was a way to get a off-road trail easement for the future, so we negotiate it, now we set it aside, but it's still the applicant's to farm. But when it converts, it would become city easement that we could use to put an off-road trail. I think that would be a substantial value. I really like this plan. I like the potential for forests to develop here over time, and the tree planting, I think, is a really good amenity. I see that as a value as well. The more of it gets forested and the longer that lasts, I see that as a benefit to the city as well. I also was looking at the the comp plan, Parks and Trails plan, there's really nothing up in this area of the city. And I know this is a long way away from being developed in more detail, but we might at some point want a neighborhood park in this area as well. So thinking that through longer term, that might also be another potential advantage. If we can structure a way to let the applicant use the land for now, but when it ends up developing, if we can set that aside, I would see value there too.
John, were you gonna say something? Wait, you had a thought, and then Jeremy.
Oh, no, I was just, I was gonna second that. I think it's a pretty cool use of building rights, compacting them into an area, and it's almost like agri-hooding, which is what I thought agri-hooding is a cool concept.
Yeah.
And so I that's sort of the point of our building rights, is you have a certain amount of building rights, and we end up with big open space because you don't have to take an 80-acre lot and have, 8 10-acre lots. You can have 8 1-acre lots, and the rest stays open, and continue to farm and plant trees. And I think it was in here, but the plan was to, this was the follow-up thing. I thought that the plan was was gonna be cash in lieu of park dedication.
Yep.
And,
Actually, I think it technically says would be fees in lieu of cash. I think that meant to be.
It might have been. Yeah, that might have been a typo.
and I was kind of thinking that, like,
In lieu of land, probably.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that, I kind of thought with the trees and stuff it'd be cool, but I don't know how you do a future park dedication
Yeah.
based on, we're gonna ag it until we don't wanna ag it anymore. And then, who knows when who knows, those building rights will be burned. So this is how it'll be until the Met Council or someone runs sewer out there. And that might be 40 or 50 years. So I know that we can't really take park space, but I was thinking in my head, we have $1 million in park dedication fees plus, that we ought to take some of that and do something with it, rather than just leave it in the bank.
Depreciating?
Yeah, I mean,
Appreciate it.
well,
I
yeah.
love it.
Plans with the park.
No, I know, yeah. And it just, in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna bring this up. I'm sure they're all over it, but we ought to be thinking about parks out in that neck of the woods.
I'm trying to remember the Bechtold property and such. This is extremely close to this. Didn't we do some type of trail along the creek bed there in the Bechtold?
Yes.
Give me a moment, I can double check.
I don't wanna double dip, so to speak, or double, but it'd be neat if something could attach to that, if at all possible, but I think there's property between it and Bechtold.
There is.
Bechtold
This
Farm.
is, Bechtold
Yep.
Farm is right here. This is that property.
So there's this pretty decent chunk between.
No, there's only one, there's this.
It's that one parcel.
Remember, we're taking the trail down here.
Along the water, yep.
Yep. And then it could potentially cut through, this is the corner here that we.
Yeah,
So this is the land that they're talking about, right here.
Is there a packet that shows what you're talking about?
ML Unlimited, that's you guys, right? Yeah, so
This trying to,
they're from here to here.
that's a missing
This property.
Well, yeah,
portion
but,
of
yeah,
that, right?
but I,
You get a map.
but I think we have an
Yeah.
easement
Pull up
along
the-
there. No, we may not have.
it's just gonna
We
pull
could,
this down.
the way to connect them is through this property, or somehow, I don't know if we have an easement through that.
Yeah, I don't know either, but to Jeremy's point,
Well, so is there some way we can tie a trailer?
I think that's what they're suggesting. We could take that feedback.
that's
Yeah,
what
let's
I'm
get
giving
this
out. I
second.
just remembered it's close, but I didn't think it was close enough.
I don't-
Closer, but
Yeah.
I don't think there's property access or anything like that. We don't
I
have
don't
an
think we have an
easement, so-
easement through those properties.
The hay
But-
properties, there's right away.
There's, yeah, we did something, I'm
pipe here.
pulling up the final plat.
How about along the ditch or the drainage?
Which one?
The drainage ditch in your, on your, where your tree farms, where you're proposing your tree farm, or?
Is there a creek on the south side of?
Yeah, on your property?
Well, isn't there a creek, Marcus, on the south side?
Southwest corner of our property, there's a creek running through there.
Yeah, that's the Heather Meadows. Yeah,
So could that be a trail corridor, future?
yeah.
And it hooks to the Bechtold,
Right.
Yeah, that is
some
a,
future deal,
Can't build on it.
right?
It could be an easement on the lots, right? So-
yeah, that's, ultimately, we're trying to follow the creeks here. And so, you're looking at me like, yeah.
Well, but if you
But,
remember,
it's not
in
my
the
lead, fine.
Bechtold property, it wasn't an easement, it was, the city took it as.
It was park dedication.
Park dedication.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking about.
One other thing we could think about here, and we don't run it by Thames and see what the city attorney has to say about it, but is it possible to create an agreement where it's a trail easement and we allow with like a 1-year annual lease, they can farm on it and continue to use it until such time as the property develops. And at that point, we would no longer allow it, and we could make it into a trail as part of whatever develops there at that time.
We certainly could look at that, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that might impact park dedication.
I'm not sure.
I don't know, but if we lease it, that's a great question, I don't know the
Something
answer.
to look
Yep. And then obviously running by parks is
Yep.
it close enough and those kind of things. Again, concept plan, didn't mean to give anybody a headache or anything, but
So I'll try to tackle a few of the other points that council, or that staff had in the packet. So we are open to the possibility of PUD. What were thoughts on addressing the impact on the nearby development on the existing homes on Heather Lane? I would say it's pretty important to make sure that that's being thought of when planning is going on, that we buffer and design it with those existing homes in mind. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add on that? But I would say that's a safe bet, something we'd like to see.
If it's a PUD,
Mhm.
prepare to buffer extra,
Right.
yeah. And if
Yep.
it's not a PUD and it's just according to the standards, then they will be subject to the
Right.
standard.
Yep.
Yes.
For sure. Then there was, and Jessica, or is Natalie still on?
Natalie's still on where she's chatting with
The
us.
issue of the HOA and that threshold of when maybe the agricultural use would no longer be and when an HOA would have to
Yeah.
kick in. What kind of feedback are you looking for from us on that at this
On
point?
that portion, I think that we are just wanting to understand whether or not you agree with that, if that makes sense.
The premise, I
So-
think,
I was going to propose something on that one too. Again, this is just initial feedback, but it makes sense to me as I think about it from a potential buyer's perspective. If the HOA is already there when I buy, I'm already committed to it, and maybe there's no fees, maybe they don't do a lot. But having it in place, and maybe they're paying, $25 a quarter or something, just so they know that it's there, is easier for them than trying to adapt in, 5 or 10 or 15 years when you decide to stop farming. Now they've got to take on this responsibility. And yeah, it was something they thought about for 20 minutes when the realtor briefed them on it 15 years ago. But it seems to make more sense to do it up front so that it's always there for them. And maybe they can do things with landscaping on common spaces or something like that. I don't know. But
just the open space wouldn't be part of the HOA's duties.
at that time,
When it's being
right.
used for agricultural use. Yeah.
Is this helpful to you guys?
Yeah, it's a lot.
And
You can go back and listen to the recording.
Yeah.
What,
do you have any other specific questions that you'd like to us to weigh in on?
I have a few thoughts that I'm a little bit.
Sure. If you could come up to the podium, just so we can get you on the.
what we're trying to do a little bit better as a council is give people our full thoughts at the front end and not save them for preliminary plat. So you guys are getting more of our developed thoughts than most applicants, I think, because we've made it a point to vet and look at these things more thoroughly on the front end, because we know that after these initial conversations, you guys got to do a lot of work to get a preliminary plat put together. So,
Go right ahead. If you could say your name and address for the record, too.
Mark Lee is my name, and I'm one of the owners of ML Unlimited. This is my son Marcus with me. We're partners. We acquired this property in the last 3 years in different purchases, but our intent is, and the reason we bought is that we were looking for property in this area, agricultural land that we can grow trees, plant trees, and have tillable ground. You know, this property was for sale for a while, and it just, you know, when we found out about it, it'd been on the market for almost a year, we put an offer in and they accepted it. You know, it was like, just kind of fell into our lap, but it fit, the glove fit as far as we're in a growing tree business where we plant trees. It takes 5, 6, 7 years before the trees are mature enough to sell, and then eventually, like you said, it kind of turns into a thinned out forest. And at that point, we need to make a decision. Do we eliminate a half a dozen bigger trees and turn it back into tillable or trees again? And our market is large trees and small trees, but the farm and the buildings fit for us because every building there right now we're utilizing for our trees, the tree covers, tree stakes, bulb and burlap, wire baskets, tree spades, you know, skid steer equipment. So a lot of it's indoors, you can't see it, but we're utilizing it. It's an older farmstead that needs a lot of repair, but we're working on that. And we like the buildings, we can tear them down, but then we gotta replace them. So we do need to have our equipment in that inside. We kinda need the buildings, and we get a feeling that maybe the council of the city or what Corcoran doesn't want these buildings. Well, that's okay, but we would like to operate and have our equipment inside and storage. And if we need to build another new building, then we need to tear down what we already own. It's working for us. But we want to put them in better repair than they are.
And when you say you're using all the buildings, is that including this home itself?
Okay, the home there's 2 homes on the property.
Yep.
And when we acquired the property, one was vacant, but the owner that was an elder fellow, he was in like a nursing home, so the last 2 or 3 years it just sat there. It was pretty good repair. We completely remodeled it.
Oh.
So it's basically a brand new home. And Marcus lives there with his wife. So that's redone, and you can look at it, drive by, whatever. It's, you know, it's a nice home. The second home is an older home that's very old. It's one of the oldest homes in the city. And our wives are kind of like saying, hey, we should restore this. Well, it's in disrepair, but it's still a really unique structure if it was restored. And it has a lot of history because neighbors come and tell us about it. So we've thought about burning it. The fire department has visited with us and said, you know, we can make arrangements to get that done. And we're not really using, that's the only building we're not using for storage. So if it needs to go, it's gotta go. If it's restored, it could be a nice guest quarters, whatever. It could have a lot of appeal for people that study history and wanna see there's a cistern well in the basement that people use to, it's really unique. But if it's gotta go, it's gotta go, you know. But to repair it costs money too. And our intent isn't to have a, you know, property degraded and falling apart. It needs work. So we need to make a decision on what's gonna happen there, but we wouldn't be interested in, say, Marcus can speak for him, but we're more interested in if we lose an entitlement, that's a building lot, a saleable lot, you know, the house isn't worth that to us. You know, just isn't. But it probably would be if somebody says, hey, we got some money like you have in your park dedication that we could restore this for you. And then we'll gladly.
There you go.
I have a cistern in my basement, and I'd take any money the city want to give me too. But my house has been restored, so. And we turned it into a dodgeball room for our kids, so.
But, so anyways, to convert this over and sell lots, we still want to operate a farm, but to do that, we can't have, say, a 50-acre farm. We have to do, for some reason, it's this 4-acre piece. That's the house, and then this outlot, that we still need all this tillable, but to make it all work, we were recommended that we just get a CUP so we could operate as a farm and use our whatever. We don't care if it's 4 acres or 5 or 10, it doesn't matter. But based on your ordinances or whatever, it does matter. So that's why it's 4 acres.
Gotcha.
You know, and the rest is trees tillable, but we don't care if it's 10 or whatever.
Gotcha.
Or 2 even.
It's part of the open space requires, it's not the 4 that matters, it's the open space
It's
piece.
because it's an open space.
Yeah.
And OSMP that it
Max.
has to be 4 or less because for development in the future of sewer and water. To make
Quick-
it
Yeah.
cost
Quick
effective.
follow-up question.
Yeah.
I know the
Thank you for
max
that.
is 4.
That's awesome.
What
I just
if,
had one other comment, and that was, if there's a well that would provide water for the 10 new lots, would that also provide water for other properties around, or, that's kind of confusing to me, because I was thinking each one of these would have their own well.
That's
And that's what I think we
prefer.
prefer.
Yes.
Okay.
I think the only thing it mentioned in the staff report was because that wasn't fully, like, gone into at this point, because it's early in the plan, that if it couldn't work out, that would have to be the route you'd have to go, would be a community well for the new lots.
Yes.
But I think we'd all prefer, and it'd probably be simplest for individual lots.
I don't care
Self-contained.
either way.
Gotcha.
I only thought it might be cheaper for them.
Yeah. We're not
One big
opposed to
well.
individual lots, so.
Individual wells.
Sorry, yes, individual wells, yeah.
The question I was going to ask a second ago, does it make a difference, and I guess this might be more for Natalie, if she can still hear us.
Yep, she can still hear us. She was responding. I don't know what.
Would it make sense to draw the lot line for the property that has all the outbuildings, such that the outbuildings go on the farm property rather than the residential property? Or is that not allowable because you've got to have a residence?
I believe we don't allow an accessory structure
Without a.
without
Yeah.
Dean, what do you know about that? I'm sorry.
We have one by us, it's 80 acres and they have a barn, and
So I
that's
think
it.
be
there was a
legal
time
non-conforming.
period that they would have been allowed.
Never?
I'm sure there
Okay.
was.
My neighbor said that he sued the city and lost, and that's,
Oh, okay.
That I don't.
he did not want a accessory building on an empty property, but there it sits. And he's an attorney, so he did it all himself.
There is a conditional use permit process. Natalie, is that for the accessory structure?
But if it's open space, it can't, isn't the requirement it doesn't have anything on it? Otherwise, it's not open space anymore?
I think it would, I'm not sure how we would have, I'm not sure that it could be part of that open space that we have to preserve. It would have to be, we generally don't like doing outlots for things like
No.
that, so.
Okay.
Yeah, that might be tricky.
And so likely it'd still require some of the buildings to come down is what we,
But I think what staff was, one of the options you laid out, what was if the home, that second home was removed, would the rest of the accessory buildings stay in that 7,500 calculation? Is that, or is that additional buildings
I
being removed?
think, yes to that. So I think the answer is that they would still need to come, some of the buildings would still need to come down because it's
In
still
addition to the
50.
home?
Yes.
With the
So
CUP?
not included, so the 7,000 to 8,000 square feet was for the detached structures, not including the home,
Gotcha.
is what we were
So-
proposing, so.
Where does council,
Yes.
or how do they feel, how do we feel on if the second home had to be removed, but allowing through CUP the remaining buildings so that they can be used for agricultural use?
Can I ask a question? What's our definition of a home? Because are they asking to preserve the home as a historical home with no one living in it? Or are they asking, would you have people live, would it be two homes where people live, or just the home stands there with really nobody living in it?
I think if it was restored, it'd be, you know, a livable home that
Oh,
either
okay.
be occupied by, say, me and my wife, because we're getting close to retirement
Yeah.
years, or, I mean, two houses that, you know, they're
Shared address.
Yeah, so they're functional homes, they're not like,
guest home or.
okay.
Gotcha.
And the only reason we're talking about this is the lots to the south, to get everything to conform, all of this stuff. I'm going down the road, if you just wanted to build a tree farm, you got a tree farm. Don't do any additions and those kind of things, but I understand what you're saying. And that was where, if I can ask one more question, you're gonna do a tree farm, but this isn't going to be a business where people come and buy. You're growing trees and then delivering to people that order. Okay.
Yeah, this home, this second home, it's not a, for us, like, it almost got burned down
Yeah.
just like a few days ago, you know, we stopped, but it's not, like, it's not a huge thing for us.
Gotcha.
So you were
I just know that if
Talking.
we lose
I interrupted.
that amount of building,
Yeah,
you know, you lose it, but it's really hard to get more space again.
Yep.
See what I'm saying? So we'd like to utilize what we have and use it rather than, we need storage and we need building.
And
Not the house, we're not using for storage. And it's,
Gotcha.
as the staff recommendation stands, if we were to remove the house, regardless if we remove the house, they have 1,500 square feet.
Thousand.
15,000. Big difference because the allowable would be 2,125. So we would ask that they remove some of the structures similar to, is what the staff recommendation is currently, would be to remove about half, or allow half of the square footage, so 7,000 to 8,000 square feet, which would be about half.
I guess what I'm a little confused on is what the breakdown of those is. We've got the house
So we
and
can-
the, what, 8 or so other accessory.
You wouldn't include the house, though, 'cause
We
that's
wouldn't
not an
include the
accessory.
houses, it would just be the other accessory structures. So we'd have to outline which to get closer to a number.
Okay.
No, we did, we don't have a breakdown
Yeah,
of
you
the
get
exact
more
sizes yet because we don't have a survey since this is a comp plan or concept plan. But once we have the survey, we can kind of tailor that
But then they lose.
number
Yes, they
to
get
what we have,
S&P.
similar to what we did with the property that had 30,000 square foot of accessory structures, and we reduced that. So to
could
be
ask,
a
it's a
similar
good question.
concept that, because we'd want to have that plan
Oh,
in
ought
to
to
reduce
make
it
it-
similar to what we had done previously.
No, connect.
Okay.
But if the applicant is saying they need storage, and they'd have to build back, I presume that would mean like outside storage with fencing? That's worse, in my view, than letting them keep the buildings. But I agree with staff's concern long-term that whoever buys this in 20 years now has $500,000 of demolition to do. So I'm not sure how to balance that.
Ask your question.
I've been thinking outside the box all night.
Oh, your life.
I've been living in my own little world, okay.
That's what we like about you.
I know and I understand everything they're trying to do, but could that outlet, if they're willing to take that house and make it go away, can't that lot, instead of be a 4-acre parcel, can't that be 21 acres and then they're allowed all of that and all of the rest of this stuff you guys have already thought down that road?
Or
I
acre
think
max.
in order to get, it would need to be platted as part of the OSMP, so it would be required to be a 4-acre.
You know where I was going with that,
Yes.
right when I said it. I just, we've got
there might be
farmers out there
some-
that got more than 20 acres and they can put however many buildings they want on their property.
Would the PUD enable you to do that?
Yeah, that's another way to go.
Yeah, 'cause if it's PUD, then it's not strictly.
I would love to
Have
see the
look at what could
homestead.
Be done on a PUD under this. So with the OSMP, they're getting the bonus, density bonuses, so they have a 200% density bonus, so I
Yeah,
think it would get
that's
less. So the
Yeah.
bill, so it's a combination of
Gotcha.
things.
I'd love to see the buildings and where he's talking of restoration and making them nicer. It's a homestead without boundaries, those kind of things. I'd love to see it, and then it turns into a house farm with a whole bunch of
But the-
pieces of broke up land down below and some pretty nice little homes down there in the end of a road. I'd still like to see
So they're out
a preserve there, so.
if they don't do an OSNP, they're out 4 lots, right? Because they're asking for 12 lots on, like an 87-acre parcel.
Yeah, what's the
Off the top of
bonus?
my head, yeah.
45 and what,
Well, they have,
So they.
35.4 and 45?
well, if you add those properties together,
I want to say it was like 200% density.
Yeah,
bonus.
it's 200% bonus.
yeah, because they keep open space, they get bonus, but how many, if they didn't
I
have
think
the
it's based
bonus?
off of the existing building rates between the two
Yeah.
properties, and I don't know if it's a
I
straight
could just
acreage
pull the-
calculation.
Well, it was at one point, I don't know how many has been, like when they
it's a-
split up on Heather,
Give
they
me
might have
the-
used,
Farmstead has 5 development rights.
Okay, I was gonna pull up
And
the
the existing
map.
residential parcel has 1 implied development right, so there's a total of 6 available.
okay.
And that's getting the two.
And that's how you get to the 12.
Split it, they get to 12, all of the other stuff that's happened.
What I like about Dean's idea is that if the open space parcel contains the outbuildings and the home, and that's what ends up being redeveloped in 30 years, say, there will be sufficient capital going into that parcel at that time to take care of getting rid of all of those buildings. So you're tying the problem to the value in the future, and the value can resolve the problem when it's time. So if there's a way to do the PUD approach and still use the OSMP mechanism and all of the ordinances that pertain to OSMP, I think that might be a good way to go.
I'd be,
So the way that the ordinance reads today is the open space has to be a separate lot for the
Yeah.
homeowners
Yeah.
association. So I think that's the challenge, is the way the code is written today.
I think we'd run into just all kinds of problems using, it's like a cafeteria development where you get all the benefits of the OSMP and the PUD and you smash them together and you just do whatever you want. And these big outlots are, on the OSMP, are for the kind of stuff that we've talked about, which is preserving big open spaces. And you, it's like you can't always have your cake and eat it too. We're trying to thread the needle, but we're running into like substantial roadblocks.
So I guess what would the alternative be? Removing the home, and then it would be staff working with the applicant to see what,
I think that we'll get more information at preliminary plat. So giving that feedback of what we'd be open to is gonna be really helpful to help them move forward with coming in with that. And we can, once we have some dimensions and plans, then we can talk through how we would get to that number of what that CUP and the accessory structures could be.
I mean, in general, I'm open to
And we
them being able
go-
to keep, what they need accessory wise to be able to do the tree farming on it. But I guess the devil's in the details.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think we can go out and do outreach on the property and look to see, help understand what we could save and what we can't. So I think we need some dimensions as well as being able to work with the applicant to come up with some sort of compromise here.
For me on the OSMP stuff, I don't want to get too far off the reservation, because one thing that we have to be aware of is that we have to have consistent application. And if we get too far off of consistently applying the OSMP standards,
We'll have a lot of issues.
We are in
Yeah.
big time problems.
Yep.
So even if we if we like the idea of a project and it makes sense, we love it, we are bound by
For sure.
the legal standard.
Staff reels us back in, pulls back the reins.
Yep.
Because I like it too. I
Thank
like
you,
it a lot.
Natalie.
I think it's great. We just have to be consistent in application of the law, or we get into all kinds of trouble on it.
For sure. So yeah, maybe that's the next step, is staff to work with the applicants and,
The applicant and talk through that, and if they've heard your feedback tonight, and we can follow up on a reach out,
perfect.
discuss that.
Anything else you guys wanted to go over, or anything else staff or the applicant wanted feedback on? I think those were the big things I noted from the staff report. And good job, everyone, doing that on the fly without our planner fully able to talk.
Trying to channel my inner Natalie.
You did,
all
good
the
job.
Discussions that we have. I think on the second to last slide, are there any architectural themes and any landscaping, the right-of-way with native, any of these items on here that you want any additional?
I kind of had a question about the architectural theme. Did anything come to mind of when that's been implemented elsewhere in the city on like an OSMP?
I don't know that we've, off the top of my head, if we've done that with any other ones.
Okay.
But if there are things that you'd like to see, it'd be a good chance to get some feedback for the group.
Do you guys have any thoughts on that, on the architectural theme of that?
I think it'd be cool if there was one. That could be part of what the HOA controls as part of setting up the neighborhood. I don't want to dictate what it would be, but.
Yeah, I think I'd be open
On
to,
the homes, you mean?
yeah,
Yep.
We don't have that kind of thing on the Bechtold property, just because it's a whole different piece.
Yes.
I would love to see some consistency, some creativity, but I don't want to see 3-story and then a ranch sitting next to each other.
some sort of connecting tissue to
Just,
draw them together.
but the freedom not to complicate things too much either.
That's what I think we'd be open to. We don't know what it is, but we're open to seeing one. How about the other items up there, guys. Any thoughts? Monument sign, not a big deal to me personally.
Yeah.
I'd love to see a tree farm landscape the right of way with trees. That would be great.
Yeah? They got the trees?
Yeah, presumably, or the
Well,
seeds for the tree.
They'll have to put some in anyways. I think that's part of the rule.
Yeah. And then,
It's amazing what these do. I had a 10-acre one next to me, and when they cleared it and tilled it all up and did everything, I didn't realize there was a half dozen deer that made that tree farm their home. It was neat.
oh,
It's pretty cool. Where else do you guys do business, if I can ask?
All over.
You got parcels everywhere with
Oh, no,
growing
this is
trees
the
and
only-
stuff?
This is the only parcel.
This is the one to give you your self-resource instead of buying trees. Cool.
We buy from other growers in
Yep.
the area, but, yeah, this is our own, only one.
cool.
Neat.
Good deal.
Thank you.
Thank you all
Thank you.
for your feedback.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Thank you, Dean. Have a good one.
Thanks, Dean.
Don't forget to visit us.
You still owe me 18, you know that. All right. Been trying to golf with him for 15 years.
Oh, really?
We've never been able to tie together.
Otherwise, we can send it to him. We'll find him.
Sorry.
Perfect. Okay, then we'll go right on to unfinished business, which is item 9. We have a public comment opportunity
Perfect.
for 9A through C.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Anyone joining us in person who'd like to come up to the podium can speak on open comment, on the public comment.
Guys,
Otherwise, anyone joining us
picks up on the
virtually
mics.
can press *9 or click raise your hand, and we can recognize you. Mayor, at this time, no one is raising their hand.
perfect. Okay, we'll go right into 9A, Administrative Department Reorganization Phase 2.
Perfect.
Can I make a motion?
Please,
Sure?
Sure.
Can I make a motion?
I'll make the suggestion, please.
Can I make a motion to approve? We've talked about this.
Yep.
We
It's
have,
not the
there's
first-
just a slight tweak to it, if you would like, I could go over it very briefly. It's a quick slide. So what we had in our existing staffing plan is up here. What we proposed in April was to have a communications and public works combined position. In talking with Kevin about what we had been planning for the next year, we were going to ask for a full-time public works administrative assistant. So rather than hiring someone and then having to rechange their job description again, we're thinking about hiring that public works administrative assistant and then having a half-time communications assistant. So that is the big change. We believe there's enough room in the budget this year, and then it'd be incorporated in the 2023 budget.
Perfect.
Those are the very brief change. I'd love to move forward if you're comfortable.
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Do we have a
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. 9B, ordinance priority discussion.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor and Council. What we have in your packet is really an outline of the variety of different ordinances that we have coming, that we've talked about over the last couple months. And I had Natalie put together a outline of what we've discussed and how we might go ahead and get what we see as priorities, and really wanted some feedback from council on whether or not you agree with the staff priorities or you think we should move in a different direction. I would note, as we seem to planning and zoning seems to be of much discussion over the past several years. We've generally gone a little bit over budget, and we're looking like we would likely potentially go over budget this year as well. Just noting that we'll use Natalie's time as much as we can, but in order to move some things forward, we'd likely go over budget. As I said, we've done done that for the last several years, but just want to make sure that you are all aware of that as we move forward with things, but really wanted to get some feedback on whether or not there were items that should come before other items. So what we're recommending is that amendment for fences and lots with multiple frontages. We've got that pretty
ongoing.
pretty ongoing. We have some great feedback on that. Creation of a rental ordinance for implementation in 2023. So we would include some staffing we create that and then get the staffing on board either later this year or first thing in 2023 with a budget. We'd be looking at defining PUD objectives and standards. We are having a work session on the 28th, or we're hoping to. We have not yet scheduled that, I should say. We're hoping to do that on the 28th to really get some feedback to understand how we can move forward. If we need to make major tweaks to the PUD ordinance, but also just really get that outline of what council's looking for when we're negotiating PUDs. People continue to come in and ask for flexibility, so understanding what are the benefits and trade-offs, and then item number 4 would be establishing those buffer zones or transition zones in order to transition from different types of uses, as well as different if there is existing homes, to allow for some additional buffering between those as well. So those would be the things that we would work on.
And there was the manure ordinance that Ken had talked about, the
Yeah.
watershed would like us to look at, and I know you and I talked about this a bit.
Yes.
Putting that in 2023, or looking into it more at least. Does that sound like that's
At this point, there's,
okay by them?
there's funding for doing projects, not necessarily funding for creating the ordinance, is my understanding, that we can get through the watershed. So if we move forward with that, it would have to be a city initiative.
Gotcha.
So with some of these other ones that were part of our strategic plan, I think that it might make sense to continue working on that, but move forward with the priorities that we set.
That makes sense. I know it's something that's important to the watershed. I had a long call with Ken about it. But I think it's more they'd noticed that we don't have maybe the same level of, or the same standards that some other of our neighboring communities have, and they'd like us to be more in line with that. So I think as long as we're keeping that in mind as we're going ahead.
You mean our neighboring cities that actually don't have any farms?
Well, yeah.
It's really easy to have a manure ordinance when you don't have any working farms.
That's a fair point. And
My
that might be why
concern
it's.
is I've been trying to get some things done with my drainage and stuff for 5 years, and I'm still trying to get them. What bothers me about it is the Rush Creek Water said Hennepin County has now hired engineers from neighboring farming communities to maybe come out and look at my parcel, but it's been 5 years since I've been trying to get the benefit of pay, but I've been continually fixing tile and stuff to help drain Public Works and everything between Public Works to my house, so I'm whining out loud, so sorry.
Separate from this, but I'm more than happy to get you in touch with our Hennepin County Commissioner.
I have Hennepin County, I've got Kevin.
Okay.
I'm good. It's
Keep
just-
bugging him.
I've been bugging, he's called, I've told him, it's just, my thing is I'm not gonna get reimbursed for everything I've done in the 5 years I've been trying to get a plan from Hennepin County, so I'll stop whining,
No,
keep going.
well, totally fine. Okay, so does anyone have any initial thoughts on we have a recommended order from staff?
I agree with the order. A manure ordinance is probably due, but that is gonna be very hard
Yep.
in our town. It's not gonna be something that's gonna be easy or even welcome, especially for existing people.
Yeah.
And the watershed tends to discount the fact that they eat the food the farmers produce. But
I'm open to that, but I don't think we should make it a 2022
Gotcha.
thing because of the level of difficulty. It'll eat up the budget so fast.
That makes perfect sense to me. I'm on board.
Agreed.
I was going to suggest for an interim stopgap, you know, at our last work session, we talked about, when it comes to the PUD ordinance, two objectives. One was to try to ensure we have better control over uses that aren't allowed in the underlying zones. And the second was trying to ensure we maintain open space. The second is more complicated and more challenging to do, but I think the first we could do relatively easily by changing to require the same thing we do in underlying zoning whenever we try to increase, when we try to modify an existing area from a residential zoning to a non-residential zoning, it requires a 4/5. Could we direct staff to create that kind of a modification for the PUD ordinance, where if we are changing an underlying area to allow a use that is not part of the zoning for that area, that PUD requires a 4/5? And that can be a stopgap while we work on these other 2 or 3 things that would be in line before touching PUD again.
Get what you're saying. I think maybe the best way to potentially do that would be to at least get a good big picture on the 28th.
Yeah.
And if
may not
that's,
be legal.
well, we can
Just
we
a
can dig
hurdle.
into
It's
that.
in code now.
No, the 4/5 on a,
I think it is actually.
it's legal
I think so.
We can
on using for an
make,
unapproved,
we can make different, we can go stricter than,
oh, we can,
than.
Good.
then
current
quorum?
code. Yes. We get to set our.
I think Medina has it for their PUD ordinance.
Yeah, we
Kinda like
certainly
that.
can.
That would probably satisfy, you,
It strengthens our negotiating
Oh.
position considerably
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
as a city.
So maybe on the 28th, we discuss that and some of the other big picture stuff. And if we want to put something on the agenda
You wouldn't-
following that, if there's
A
some
lot.
quick, shorter term or nearer term changes, we can do that at that point. And then we'll have an idea of what else is in the PUD, and that should be able to fill out this timeline or this priority list. But I think in general, frontages, fencing, that's already ongoing.
How much more work is required for that one?
Not a whole, not much. Natalie has it on, I believe she has it on the schedule for the next, for draft on 8/20, or 8/4, on August 11th meeting, sorry. And then a public hearing for September. So it would be in September. So it's near,
Be the
we'll have a
soonest it could be.
draft in 2 meetings.
Rental ordinance, I guess the only question I had on that is, and it's probably hard to come up with an answer on the spot with this, but some of the other stuff for implementation and staffing, what is the timeline roughly that we'd be looking where we'd have potentially an ordinance in place and the ability to enforce it and operate that whole side of things?
Yes, so I think hiring, it depends on what we would do with hiring. If we would utilize current staff or make changes to utilize current staff, consultant staff. I think there's a variety of different things we could do. We do have a part-time planning assistant. We could look at working or other positions to add that to. We could look at doing something with the police department, depending on kind of where we go with it. So from a staff, if we needed to hire a staff member, it's usually 2 to 3 months.
Gotcha.
In terms of the budget, we'll be able to budget, have that start January 1. In terms of the implementation, it's probably a couple of months, a month or 2 to draft it. We'd want to do notice to all current folks. There's some, to get people on board with, we'd want to, like, 4 to 5 months on that, just because we want to do, create that outline and give people time to apply for the license, things like that, so. I
So
think
we're looking about a year.
Potentially,
Gotcha.
we might be able to move it a little bit quicker. We just it depends on how long we'd want to do the moratorium for, if we want to stop licenses.
Gotcha.
Once we get it in place and allow for licensing, if we want to stop issuing new licenses, I think it kind of depends
Can
on
we,
how that
could
works.
we do that, is get an ordinance and turn around and put a moratorium in place to give us time to do all of these things? Or do we still have to get staff on board?
Well, we'd still
for the
need to
initial
accept
ordinance?
applications and things like that, so we'd still have to process and do some. It kind of depends on what the scope is
Yep.
of, I mean, there's.
Might
are
not have to be
people going
fully
in-
staffed to the level it will be eventually, but probably some level of staffing to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So I think, it's a really long-winded way of saying, I think that that makes sense to be number 2 on the list there. I think PUD will know more after the 28th, but makes sense to have up there, and I think we can accomplish some of the other items potentially in the longer-term PUD stuff that we're talking about. And buffer zones I've been pushing for forever, so that, I'm happy to see that on there. Did you have something? I didn't mean to
No,
cut you off.
looking at Natalie, her ideal would be to have the ordinance ready to go by Jan 1.
Okay,
So for the rental ordinance,
Yep.
back to that piece there, but then it would just depend on how long we'd need to, if we wanted to do how we wanted to proceed
Gotcha.
with the moratorium and other things.
so everyone else, are we on board with the 1 through 4?
So the,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I voted against the fence thing, so like, obviously I'm not for that one.
Right.
Since we're past that now,
Right,
so,
I gotcha.
yeah, so that's, I'm on board with it.
Gotcha, perfect.
agreed.
Yes. All right, and did you need a motion for that? Would you like a motion for that?
If we can just confirm, get a consensus of the council,
Yeah.
we should be.
Me,
just-
John, Jeremy, and I think Dean give us a head
Yep.
nod. Yep.
I'm good.
Okay, consensus, perfect.
Perfect.
We'll
Just
go
shake it
ahead and
harder
move
so you can hear it.
forward with the staff recommendation here.
Sounds good. Alrighty, 9C, which is just scheduling work sessions. Do those dates generally work for at least 3 of us?
Where are they?
July
28th.
28th at 5:30,
August 11th.
and for the PUD one, and August 11th at 5:30 for the draft budget review.
Note that Alan said he may not be here on the 28th as well.
Gotcha. So we can have one other
So we-
person not.
We would, if we could have 3
So-
members of.
We haven't seen Alan for a while.
Who was here
Since
last?
June 23rd.
Who's
That was
coming?
our last meeting. so.
I can do work, I can do that
The
work
bonus
session.
week, kinda.
You can?
Yeah,
Perfect. I can do both.
and 5:30. Yeah, that's an important one.
Yeah.
And then August 11th, we're hoping to have our first draft of the budget, discussion, and we're hoping to have a draft out to you before, even before the packet, to give you some time to look at that.
I will attempt to make both, but for sure August 11th.
Okay.
And I'll try very hard.
And Jeremy can make
28th also.
28th? Perfect. And we should be good. Perfect. So I'll go ahead and call the work sessions for July 28th at 5:30 and August 11th at 5:30.
And Alan did note he'd provide feedback on the 28th for us.
Perfect. Sounds good. And we will move on to 10, which is new business. We have a public comment opportunity.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Anyone joining us virtually can press *9 if you're on a phone, otherwise click reactions and raise your hand, and we'll recognize you to speak. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and move into new business. At this time, no one's raising their hand.
Sounds good. And 10A is the broadband project discussion.
Perfect.
And Jessica, I don't know if you want to
Yes.
give an overview of the
Thank you,
process.
Mayor. Over the last, since August of 2021, the city's been looking at different ways to move forward with broadband. In 2021, we outlined broadband expansion and access to broadband as a major goal of the city as part of our legislative priorities. So we did go and pursue a grant in August of 2021. Since not receiving that grant, we have been working with some partners to explore different options for broadband. We have received, I just, on the screen, not in any particular order, but just it happened to go in alphabetical order on the screen up there, but we've been working with Comcast, Arvig, and Mid-Continent to talk about different options that could be available. We have 2 projects that there were some additional materials at your desk that outline 2 state grant projects. And then Mid-Continent was not going to pursue a state grant, but at this time they don't have any capability to do a 2023 project. But should we not be successful with a grant and want to look at them as an option in the future, they want it to be considered. So the 2 items in front of us today are to discuss 2 different broadband grants, one with Arvig and one with Comcast. Currently, the Arvig project is a $3.7 million project. The border-to-border broadband grant would be a 40% ask from the state, the city, and I believe they talked about county, splitting the 30% city. They noted it as city in their email, but I believe it's a city-county contribution.
Yep,
So we would be responsible for potentially up to half of that, or more.
If the county was on board with
If the county
that,
was on
yeah.
board with that. So it could be more than that. And then the Arvig group would be doing a similar percentage. It would get some of our underserved and unserved populations of approximately 493 homes. And then Comcast has a similar project, but it's slightly larger in cost and a few extra homes, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think 3 more homes.
Yeah, 3 more homes, so not significantly more.
But it was
a
all
number
of the
homes.
unserved homes.
Yes.
in Corcoran.
So both projects would provide access to our underserved and unserved structures within the city, and then provide access to those undeveloped parcels for in the future, they would have access to those. So that's another key component of the broadband project. The Comcast project, what they submitted to us is 65% contribution from Comcast with a 30% state contribution. That would be the broadband grant, and then a 5% local and county contribution. We have discussed with the county the potential for county participation, and they have seemed open to some number.
Yep, they've done with some other communities on recent projects, and I think the number that's been thrown out in some instances was 50%, and they seem open to that conversation, and seem like they have the funding. So I think we have a good shot at that.
Staff would be proposing using our ARPA funds for this. Other cities have used their ARPA funds. Minnetrista, who actually worked directly with Mid-Continent, did not go through any funding. They used ARPA funds for their project, so it's something that we've seen other entities do, and seems to be allowable as one of the items that we can use those funds for. So what we'd like to do today is just get some feedback on which direction we'd like to go. Staff, based on the numbers that were recently received, we would recommend moving forward with Comcast. It seems to provide us the most bang for our buck and get the number of homes, the most number of homes for the least cost.
The other thing I would note too is the Comcast numbers there. That's a lower ask of the state grant, which would improve our odds in the scoring that they'd have of it, because it's asking for less money. So I think that would also lead to that same choice. I think that's a very good deal.
In both these cases, we're talking broadband to 493 homes.
Yes, I think the Comcast, I think they were gonna potentially service 3 more homes.
Yeah, I think it's 496,
That's their
and essentially
original project.
Is there a map or location of those homes?
I can provide that. Give me just a moment here. We have,
And it would essentially bring it a lot closer too, so when there's, you know, another development like the Lee one we looked at today coming in, suddenly it's.
It would be there.
Not as much of a pull to get there.
so there is a significant portion of our city that does not currently have broadband. We have it to the east, some in the north, and some in the middle here. Like, give me just one moment, and I've got the county has, or the state has some really nice maps.
While Jessica's doing that, I think the math makes the decision relatively straightforward. I would support the Comcast approach, given the lower city contribution. And I look forward to being able to announce that people are going to have at least a gig available to them.
Sorry, our internet's not working.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, well.
It was, Michelle got to see it on the screen.
I saw it for a second and I
Oh,
couldn't find my house, so.
It just illustrates
Oh,
how
here we
much
go.
we rely on high-speed internet access.
One moment here. It was giving us, it was a pop-up from the project. So Corcoran is here. So here is Highway 55 to the south. Here is 101 is right along the edge here. And then
So everything in pink?
everything in, and it goes
Pink
up
is
to-
served by
Pink is
cable.
served by cable, anything, cable fiber, and then broadband.
All right.
Fiber broadband is in the yellow, so you can see over on this portion.
That's
The
Midco
Minnesota, when Midco
Greenfield.
has brought a lot, Midcontinent has brought
in Greenfield.
a lot in Greenfield, yes. So they're not currently in Corcoran, but, so there is a significant area. A lot of the area is also somewhat undeveloped, but is a significant area that is currently underserved. And
Which is the underserved area? All the
anything not pink.
non-colored? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that big,
Not pink or yellow.
not pink or yellow. So the southern portion here, and then this big kind of expanse.
Where's City Hall?
City Hall is right
Yep.
at the very
All right.
end.
End of the pipe.
Yes, and we do have a wonderful representative from Comcast here who is happy to answer any questions if you have questions on the Comcast.
Is there roads on here? I'm being selfish.
So-
Where's
You would be,
Bechtold?
you would,
Bechtold,
you would get it.
you would get it. Because Bechtold is,
Yeah, you're
Keep going.
underserved right now.
so, oh, keep going.
Keep going,
Oh,
now straight up, is that Bechtold Road?
We lost the green one, but.
What?
I know. I've.
So it would
had a whole thing about
encompass
it.
the rest. We would like to get everything pink or yellow. Yellow.
The
is-
yellow, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it'd be fiber.
I'm all for it, let's go.
So,
I have another group that supplies, it ain't so good. I'd love to have Comcast, so you got my vote,
Okay, well,
if we're voting.
good.
yeah.
Good
Come on.
option.
I'll go ahead and make a motion
Sorry.
to approve Resolution 2022-85, as well as directing staff to proceed with partnering with Comcast for the state grant application and the broadband expansion project, as we've discussed, as well as partnering with Hennepin County for additional grant funding and authorizing expenditure of up to $110,000 of American Rescue Plan funded dollars for the project.
Did you make that motion?
I did make that motion.
Second,
Perfect. And just to clarify, it is the.
Third, fourth,
we had two
whatever we
draft
gotta do.
resolutions.
Yes.
It's the Comcast.
The one that
one
is
that labels Comcast
10A2
as a.
with Comcast, yep. Perfect. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. 3-1. Perfect. Thank you. And thank you, and we're excited to get this going. This is fantastic. And also thank you to Arvig and Midco and everyone else that we've had a lot of conversations with in the county.
And we've
And
been
a lot.
working with the counties, we've been working on this for a while. You know, when we finished the NTIA grant, we've been Still working on options. So
Yeah.
It's a huge quality of life improvement if we can get it for a big chunk of the city. So thank you for all the hard work you put into it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for making it out here tonight. Perfect. All righty. And we will go on to, so do we have any staff reports?
No, we do not have any staff reports.
Okay.
We just have that addition of the closed session.
Sounds good. Then, okay, 12 is a closed session, so the city council is going into closed session to discuss non-public health and medical data, which must be discussed in a closed session per Minnesota Statute 13D.05 subdivision 2A, 3, and 4.
Recording stopped.
Recording's paused. Oh, actually, I'll put it in there. And then just not put anything in there. But this will have to go. Oh, it will, yes, depending on how. Yes. I'll get it ready. I'll be right here. I didn't realize the night didn't.